right, so breaking news, it would appear that they have once again tried and failed to assassinate President Trump at the White House this weekend. And the crazy part is, not even joking, yesterday I had a premonition about this happening. I thought to myself, well, the news cycle is relatively slow. It's the weekend. It always happens on a weekend. Watch, someone's going to try to assassinate Trump tomorrow. And then it came true. I don't know if it was instinct, deja vu, whatever it was, but I thought to myself, okay, so they've heavily publicized he's staying at the White House. He's not going to Don Jr.'s wedding or the events in New Jersey because he has to negotiate this deal with Iran right now. He's calling the whole cabinet back. Watch, some stupid idiot leftist or whoever it is going to try to storm into the White House and fail. And for it's crazy. That's exactly what happened. I don't know. So you know how sometimes you get those instincts or those visions that completely come true? This is the case. Now, where we are lucky, I have to say, is that it doesn't appear this gunman was all that smart, and I think it's probably a good thing the last two Trump assassins have not exactly appeared to be the most competent people, because I'm not sure what you're actually thinking in being able to breach a Secret Service barricade, but especially at the White House, right? Arguably the most secure compound on earth. That's where you're going to try to target the president. Well, it turns out in this case that some 30 plus shots, it's estimated, were fired, but only about 3 of them he got off before Secret Service neutralized him, not even being able to breach the perimeter, much less get remotely close to the White House or Trump himself. So there's certainly a lot of criticism to be had of Secret Service, and skepticism is, are they really doing an adequate job of protecting the president? Have the issues from Butler, Pennsylvania, or the Trump International Golf Club incident really all that resolved these days? We still worry about that, but in this case, it does appear Secret Service did their job. None of the law enforcement were injured. Appears a civilian, unfortunately, was hit, but the Trump administration, the entire cabinet, the White House itself does appear to be completely secure. We'll tell you those details, though, of apparently what just went down. So, guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And what we know at this time is apparently around 6 p.m. this evening, a gunman approached the White House gate near Gate 17 and tried to fire 3 shots toward the building. So clearly there was a motive here. He wanted to shoot at the White House. He was armed. Again, I think it's pretty clear what happened. Now, maybe you could argue in a sense he wasn't the most serious Trump assassin. He was just someone who hated Trump and wanted to make a statement and then have a death by a cop. But I seriously cannot wait for the mainstream media or leftist conspiracy theories that actually this guy was really a Trump supporter, right? Actually, a Trump supporter would try to storm the White House and assassinate the president. Or better yet, was this one staged as well to leftists, right? Was it fake? Some crisis actor just decided to get shot and likely die or end up in critical condition? Okay, give me a freaking break. But anyways, he apparently fired those 3 shots. Agents returned fire in mass and brought the suspect down. In fact, watching the news rolls of what happened, a lot of reporters were actually live on the White House lawn. It does appear that it sounds like a lot of shots are going off, right? But it turns out most of those shots actually just coming from Secret Service, because basically the moment he starts firing at the White House, it's like a rain of fury effectively down on him. So maybe it's concerning in a sense. He managed to get off 3 shots, because you would think the moment he pulls out a weapon in front of the White House, you know, the snipers are on him immediately. But okay, in total fairness, you know, I don't think exactly it's that much of a security breach or a failure, if that at all. So as we currently know, the gunman has been taken down. He apparently is in the hospital in a critical condition. So we'll see if that guy makes it. But yeah, I think the reasons why you would seek to fire at the White House, given everything we've seen, by the way, given what just happened at the correspondents' dinner, and the fact that I don't know which anniversary, how many weeks it's been, but this is once again another Saturday, another weekend where the president's location is publicly disclosed in Washington, D.C. And that's kind of part of the reason I felt like something was going to happen again. And, you know, once again, you have someone, this lunatic, trying to do that. So there you go.
Area, of course, has a heavy police presence to begin with. So to be reporting right now as we're waiting for more information about these shots fired near the perimeter of the White House, of course, we know that more reinforcements will be on the way. We've been seeing different police cars come and go, members of the Secret Service come and go. Right now, It appears that there's not a lot of movement at this one location where I'm standing, but when I was moving around at some of the different blocks, we really did see a similar scene of just car after car, making sure that no one gets closer to the White House at this point. As journalists, we're able to be there at the White House, covering day in, day out what takes place. When something like this happens, the entire area goes on a complete lockdown. It was last month when there were also shots fired near the White House. As a result, the White House went on lockdown until the following morning. So that's inevitably something that we could see take place in the hours to come as this investigation continues. But again, police right now are telling anyone, if you are in D.C., if you're in the area, to try to stay away.
Apparently was directed toward the White House. If you get toward the west side of the White House, and we're trying to figure out precisely where this was, you have the old executive office building, now called the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which is kind of a big complex if you're working from west to east toward the White House. So we know that he was firing in the direction of the White House, and this is the preliminary report from someone who's very senior and would have direct knowledge of this information. Again, a lot of people in town. There was one source that had, questioned me earlier, even before we had this information. There's a lot of motorcyclists in town for the Memorial Day events. They always come for this time, and people thought it might have been, motorcycles backfiring or something like that. There's quite a cacophony of that. But this is clearly someone who came up and was firing at the direction of the White House. And the president, of course, is at the White House today.
Hey, Chad, Kevin here. If I could just get you to break down again, based on what you've heard, this person was taken down. Does that mean they have been neutralized, or do you think they sort of made physical contact with this person? I'm just trying to get some clarity there.
I was told that they were shot because the Secret Service returned fire against this individual.
Gotcha.
So yeah, now as for a motive, we do not have the details on that currently, but if I were to guess, I think we can all admit there's likely one of three possibilities. First and foremost, the guy clearly didn't like Trump. I think that's pretty much a given if you're going to show up at the White House and randomly shoot at it while you know Trump is there. Perhaps they'll try to argue that, oh, he was just some crazy schizophrenic guy who happened to show up to the White House and said he wanted to shoot at a random building. Don't think that's the case. But in terms of ideology, who knows? Could be a leftist, could be a jihadi. Let's not forget, currently President Trump is doing what inside the White House, right? Middle Eastern negotiations. Or it could be, heck, a Thomas Massie supporter, right? We did see that happen at Mar-a-Lago a couple of weeks ago. Who exactly knows? But the central conclusion is, for whatever reason, we can assume this guy had a gripe against Trump, and there seems to be a very common denominator where many of the people who don't like Trump oftentimes resort to violence. That said, I will also state that, again, we are pretty lucky this guy's plan was stupid and he was an idiot. It was maybe the worst assassination plan of all time. You're going to just show up at the White House entrance and just start randomly shooting at the building and, think that that's going to go anywhere. You're going to manage to take down Secret Service. Don't exactly think that's the case. If anything, he might have been almost trying to make a point more than have a successful assassination against the president, death by cop, something like that. But still, I do worry to this day about what could happen if there was maybe a more competent or effective attempt at assassination, right? Something more structured. Because you saw, for example, in D.C. at the Hilton, how quickly that dude managed to run and almost get through, right? In the end, he didn't. It was a success by and large by Secret Service, but still, it does appear he managed to get a little bit too close. There are questions, and that's why we want the ballroom, by the way, as to why you're doing large presidential events at venues that have so many entrances and exits and so many people are able to stay at the hotel and things like that. But yeah, these are legitimate concerns. So, in the case of this guy right here, I'm not going to speculate that he maybe was some type of deep state plan or some coordinated government, even foreign government conspiracy, because I would think if there was an organized attempt to take out a president, it would at least look a lot more competent than this idiot right here. But it does maybe raise another reminder that we do need to be concerned about that. Maybe another reason to believe, okay, yeah, we're lucky this guy is stupid. But what would happen if someone smart tried to take out the president? And does Secret Service actually have that situation under control? Well, I certainly hope so, right? We all beg and pray that's the case, but, I would just once again state, you look at something like this, you can say, oh, it's a success. We got him. He didn't breach the perimeter. Okay, that's all good. But let it also be a reminder that maybe in an exceptional sense, a lot more than this happens to other presidents, there are a bunch of people who want to take out Trump, probably because he's actually changing the world, and that's what happens to you, right? But that's also a reason why we have to multiply and say, double the security, triple the security. And by the way, it's easy. The White House is very secure. I actually don't deny that. I fully believe that. But when Trump goes to other venues, which is typically when we've seen this type of stuff happen, that's also where you need to have, maybe a better plan or something like that. Or who knows? This hasn't been stated publicly, but perhaps that's the reason why Trump in this case decided not to do, or the team around Trump or whatever it was, not to do the Middle East deal that they're currently trying to work out from his golf club in New Jersey, because maybe that's not as secure as the White House. Or also likewise why, despite the liberal criticism, oh, why would you not attend your son's wedding? Even though clearly, first of all, there maybe is a security concern about going to the Bahamas and what is likely, I would guess, an open air venue and all that. But then secondly, he's actually doing the peace deal right now, as you can tell, right? He's currently in an active state. He's called the whole cabinet back to the White House. There's a reason that's all happening, right? But then furthermore, yeah, if you're going to do something maybe that important, that globally significant, and have the whole cabinet there, yeah, you probably want that to be on a secure compound, which of course the White House in many ways is, but at the same time, it does have to maybe raise your concern levels about other things that could happen. And so let this just be another reminder that security around Trump needs to be taken extremely seriously. Contrary to a lot of people who claim he's done nothing as president, clearly he's done enough to warrant the anger and a lot of people trying to take him out, right? Which usually is not something that actually happens to do-nothing leaders or do-nothing politicians. And of course, that's the case. That's true. That's always been true. But anyways, guys, we will keep you posted. I'll likely probably do a video about the guy's motive once it comes out. But for now, that is what we know. Yeah, some idiot tried to storm into the White House. Apparently just got the update too, by the way. That person apparently has been deceased. So succumbed to the injuries of the gunshots. We do know too, by the way, President Trump was at the White House while it was happening, but he was unaffected. And okay, according to Reuters, the suspect was just identified as, quote, an emotionally disturbed person and had a stay away order issued to him previously. So yeah, obviously, if you're going to try to assassinate a president on some levels, you're mentally ill anyway. But all right, we'll keep you posted. Probably do a separate video if we learn who the guy's full identity is. But for now, guys, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.